Dear LucasArts, it's been a while since we've talked. Frankly, it's been too long, and things have been tough since you left. I can't help but wish you were still here, yet I know longing for what was won't get anyone far. That doesn't mean I'm no longer allowed to appreciate the things you did for me in the past though. From helping me discover new horizons, pushing me to go beyond my limits, and of course, providing me with an experience so magnificent it would take more than a lifetime to forget. Hey, what is up everybody? This is Blackblade, and today I wanted to forgo my typical focus on analysis and instead just share pure adoration for something. Over the years, I played a lot of games, and as I add more to that list, it's harder to narrow down what my absolute favorites are. There are some games though that are without question among my favorites, and today's topic is one of those. What's it called, you ask? Well, I'm not gonna repeat it. You saw the title, what else do you need? Reading glasses? Star Wars The Force Unleashed is a game I first played on the Wii around 2010. I absolutely loved it and vividly remember it being one of the first games I ever beat entirely on my own. It was a great memory, but I didn't think much more of it for some time. It wasn't until 2014 when someone introduced me to the 360 version that the game returned to the forefront of my mind. See, while by that point I had both a Wii and a 360, it never quite struck me how drastic the difference of third-party releases between consoles were, at least not until this point. It wouldn't be long before I got a copy of the 360 version and played through it. Late 2014 is the time in my life I frequently point to as the shift in appreciating games not just as distractions and ways to connect with people, but also as forms of art that can leave you different from where it found you. And while not as influential as another series of games played around the same time, it's a fair assumption that Force Unleashed was partly responsible for this shift in outlook. But why? What was it I liked so much about this game, and why do I keep revisiting it years later? Well, we're not getting anywhere just asking questions, so let's dive right in. If I could describe what makes Force Unleashed so awesome in a single word, it would be power fantasy. Wait, why did I say that was only one word? Whatever, I'm keeping it in. Star Wars as a franchise depends a lot on this idea and making it so appealing to so many people. The Star Wars games of the past have played into that before Force Unleashed, such as with the heroes in Battlefront 2, but never quite to this extent. Galen Merrick, for all intents and purposes, is one of the most overpowered characters in Star Wars history. I mean, he's able to grab and move an entire Star Destroyer for gosh sakes. And if you dare correct me that he's just using the Force to alter its trajectory, I will slap you with a cold, wet fish. As you would expect, this complements the gameplay remarkably. Sure, you could make a Star Wars game with just lightsaber swings, force pushes, call it a day, and still have an awesome experience assuming you nail the controls, difficulty, level design, AI, etc, etc, etc. Imagine though for a moment using the Force to crash one TIE fighter into another, surround yourself in a bubble of Force lightning, electrify your lightsaber extending the blade arcs, and other abilities not normally considered. Well, as you guessed, every ability I just mentioned is possible in Force Unleashed, and man does it feel good. Not only that, but you can also chain these moves reliably to give a strong sense of prowess. It's not exactly God of War levels of free flow, but who cares when you can blast stormtroopers away at speeds that break the sound barrier.
Home run!
This is made even more fun because this game is one of few that use the Euphoria engine. You remember in Red Dead Redemption when you kill an enemy or get drunk and flop on the floor? Well, I don't, as sadly I haven't played it yet, but the same physics apply here. As the Euphoria engine was ahead of its time in randomly generating ragdoll scripts, despite being a 12-year-old game at this point, the responses of enemies to your godlike force abilities is just as satisfying as it would be in a modern game engine. Now it appears Force Unleashed has more oddities with the physics than RDR, probably due to the time difference and the fact that doubling over from a bullet to the abdomen is comparatively tamer than being shoved with the equivocal might of a dump truck. But needless to say, its presence here is, well,
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
So yeah, needless to say, the combination of physics engine and game mechanics already make it one of my favorite gameplay experiences. But there's one aspect that elevates it even further: the boss fights. Now, being frank, I feel the quality of the bosses in Force Unleashed is actually lower than most hack and slash games, but that's more a testament to the genre as a whole than a mark against this game, because I essentially just said the lower end of the spectrum lets you juggle Darth Vader long enough to ponder the existence of space circuses. Mechanically speaking, the majority of these boss fights are quite solid. Despite most being your size, or heck, even shorter than you, they still present themselves as imposing threats properly testing your abilities. While it's easy to pick a worst for these fights, it's hard to decide on what the best would be. If you zapped me with Force Lightning until I gave an answer, well, first, what's your problem? And second, I'd probably say the final duel with Vader linked to the bad ending. However, Kazdan Paratus, Shaak Ti, Maris Brood and her Bull Rancor, Darth Maul, long story, and the first fight against Vader are all fantastic entries too that I'm more than willing to revisit on a rainy day. Also, before I move too far past it, I'd like to point out the fact that the protagonist, Galen Marek, and Darth Maul in the Clone Wars are both voiced by the same guy, making their fight in this game that much more amusing to me.
I see the Padawan needs one last lesson. I will not fail you, my master.
What makes so many of these fights great is, while hack and slash games typically have their bosses be 100% over the top extremity, these boss battles are more subdued and centered around the fundamentals of testing your combat prowess. Instead, they save a lot of the insane moments for the quick time events, and they have some cool ones, like electrocuting an entire Sarlacc pit with Shaak Ti in it, which, as many know by this point, if this was still canonical, would be her 4th alternate death in the lore. Sign up for the Jedi Academy. With our curriculum, you'll learn how to die brutally and come back to repeat the process in no time. Anyway, these aspects come together to create an experience that I absolutely love and find easy to get back into. Each time I come back, I find myself experimenting with and attempting new combinations. Heck, in working on this video, I already had the footage I needed from the hack and slash editorial, but I returned to the game just because I thought of something new to try. And it worked. Did you see that? When you find another game that lets you blast a guy off a railway, grab him with the Force to halt his momentum, throw your lightsaber into his chest, and hurtle him into the planet's core, give me a call please. I'll buy that in a heartbeat. Despite how cool all this is though, there's another half to my adoration for Force Unleashed, and it's an aspect this game does better than any other hack and slash I've played to date: a gripping and excellent story. Disclaimer, as of writing this, I have not played other hack and slash games with well-praised stories such as God of War 4 or Nier Automata. My apologies. Truth be told, this isn't just a favorite hack and slash story, but one of my absolute favorite stories within the Star Wars universe. Up there with the likes of the Last of the Jedi books, the Clone Wars finale, and Revenge of the Sith. Fight me. Force Unleashed follows Galen Marek, the son of a Jedi who survived Order 66 but was hunted down and killed by Darth Vader. After finding the boy, Galen was trained by Vader in secret to become his apprentice and personal assassin. From a desire to overthrow Emperor Palpatine, Vader instructs the apprentice to perform missions hunting down surviving Jedi as a means to give him the experience and training necessary to take on the Lord of the Sith himself. However, as he goes about these missions, Galen slowly begins to question the true nature of his existence, and thus concurrently embarks on a mission through his mind to find his purpose. First off, that's a terrific concept. I love the idea of a Star Wars story using the Force to tackle the psychological debate of nature versus nurture. That who you are at heart and by design has more influence on your decisions than how you were raised and what you were conditioned to feel. Second, this, in my opinion, is the definitive way to have an abundantly powerful protagonist work in a story. Though obviously there are other means a writer could accomplish that, having a character start off ridiculously strong and capable but have them begin to question their own motives is way more interesting than a character who's supposed to be inexperienced and unfamiliar with the world always happen to make the right decisions.
What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
I bypassed the compressor, I'll bypass your plot armor and slam your toe into a bed frame! I feel the reason this works so well is because hack and slash games already buff you to the moon in power level. Sure, the main characters could probably get stronger, or find that legendary MacGuffin that'll turn them into an omnipotent being, but that's a gameplay objective, not a character arc. And it feels when games of this genre even try to give their hero any development, that's the route they take. This game's story is more gripping for me because Galen is learning not how to fight, or even just who to fight, as his enemy from the beginning is still the Emperor, but rather who he is and what his true calling may be. The final thing that makes the story great is the ending, but obviously with it comes major spoilers. If you haven't played Force Unleashed and intend to, go to the timestamp posted here. With that out of the way, hey me, would you mind telling us about the awesome finale? Sure thing, me. The final level is where the game's story goes from great to an absolute masterpiece. It kicks off with a twist that everyone saw coming, with Vader revealing he used Galen to round up the enemies of the Empire to storm their meetup spot and capture them. It still works though because only Galen is being deceived, and he's at such a loss with his inner nature-nurture conflict that he's not capable of making sound judgments. The other reason it works is the writing and direction of this cutscene. This sequence includes what has got to be one of my favorite lines ever.
You never planned to destroy the Emperor.
Not with you, no.
From there, Galen's purpose is finally clear to him, and with Juno, he flies to the Death Star. Knowing full well his odds of survival, they share a moving goodbye that still makes me well up inside.
I'll never need to live this down.
Then Galen jumps into the core of the Death Star, fighting his way to the Emperor's own throne room to free his newly realized allies and defeat the Emperor and Vader, the man who he now sees to be his true enemy. This leads to my favorite decision they made in the story department, having Galen die in this final fight. Think about it. Especially over the past decade, stories like Star Wars Rebels introduced new Jedi that survived the Galactic Civil War, undermining the idea of Luke as the last of his kind. If Galen survived, it would forever pose the question of why he couldn't just defeat the Empire, seeing how powerful he is and his clear opposition to it now. Instead, he, and subsequently the player, is given the chance to make the honorable choice, to give his life so that the others might escape. In doing so, he breathes his last breath with ease, content with the knowledge that he finally knew and fulfilled his life's purpose. The idea that his family crest would become the symbol of the rebellion is a neat touch too. Perhaps a little on the nose, but I'm still a fan of it. So yeah, if you couldn't tell by my ceaseless ramble there, I feel this game has a powerful, poignant, and strongly resonating finale deserving the attention of anyone who is willing to experience it. In fact, that's a good way to sum up my thoughts on the game as a whole. Force Unleashed is a terrific game and one of my favorites, likely forever. From the marvelous gameplay, the engaging story, and even little things I never mentioned like the cool character costumes, it all comes together in a delightful package I never regret going back to. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. It was a long time coming, but hopefully it was worth it, and if you feel as such, be sure to slice that like button in half, subscribe to my channel if you are new, and let's try something different. I admit I struggled writing this script because I'm so used to talking about games from a mostly objective standpoint that it's hard to just speak on what I like. As such, I want to continue the discussion, so leave a comment on anything else you want to hear my thoughts on for this game, and I'll happily respond as soon as I can. Once again though, hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.
Wait, let me go! Ah!